Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club and another week. Hey, they call it March Madness. Violent protesters showed up at Donald Trump's rallies a few days before winner-take-all primaries in Florida and Ohio. And despite the attacks against Trump's campaign, he's still favored to win big victories in the primaries tomorrow.
And despite Trump's lead in the polls, his Republican opponents aren't giving up. And the nomination battle could last a long time. George Thomas has the story.
Scenes like this of violent confrontations over the past few days.
He actually incites violence in the way that he urges his audience on.
In and around Donald Trump's campaign rallies have other candidates criticizing the GOP frontrunner.
Trump has got to get on the TV and tell his supporters that violence in the political process in America is not acceptable. End of discussion.
But Trump has refused to take responsibility for clashes at his campaign events. This was the scene at a rally in Ohio Sunday as Secret Service agents rushed to protect the Republican frontrunner after a protester stormed the stage. At rallies throughout the weekend,
you have one of these other people. Get him out of here. Go ahead. Get out. Get out. Bing, bing. Get him out.
Trump was constantly interrupted by hecklers. He insists outside agitators are to blame and pointed some of the blame at Sanders supporters. And indeed, many in Sanders supporters did show up.
It was totally organized. Troublemakers. They're not protesters. They're disruptors. They're supposed to disrupt.
And with hours left to go before voters head to the polls in Tuesday's 5 critical states.
I think it's a disaster for the country because if Donald is the nominee, it makes it much, much more likely that Hillary Clinton wins the general.
Trump's Republican rivals aren't backing down.
We've now reached a point in this country where our political discourse looks like the comment section of a blog, where people can just say whatever they want about anyone without any rules of civility, no norms that govern how we interact with one another.
Still, polls show Donald Trump will likely be the big winner Tuesday, except perhaps in Ohio, where home state Governor John Kasich is out front with 39%. Meanwhile, in Florida, with 99 delegates and winner takes all, it's a must-win for Senator Marco Rubio. But a CBS poll has him currently in 3rd place. Experts say a defeat in his home state would likely kill his campaign. And on the Democratic side,
as millennials, your voice is important. You're the ones who will decide this election.
A fake campaign commercial from Saturday Night Live.
And luckily, I, Hillary Clinton, share all of your exact same beliefs.
Showing the front runner, played by Kate McKinnon, slowly and literally transforming into rival Bernie Sanders, just to win more young supporters.
I'm whoever you want me to be, and I approve this message. I'm trying here, guys.
Jokes aside, Clinton is hoping to add to her lead in the delegates as polls show her ahead of Sanders in all 5 states. Whatever happens, the outcome of Tuesday's primaries will be critical for both the Republican and Democratic candidates, and the results, well, are almost certain to shape the dynamics of the race. George Thomas, CBN News.
Thanks, George. I was thinking today, if I were president, what would I do in relation to North Korea? The time might come just to flatten them because they are dangerous. And North Korea, once again, is threatening the United States of America with a nuclear attack. This time, they say they can wipe out New York City. John Jessup has that story.
That's right, Pat. The North says it could wipe out Manhattan with a hydrogen bomb mounted on a ballistic missile, and it warns its hydrogen bomb is much bigger than the one built by the Soviet Union. The Washington Post reports the communist nation says all the people in Manhattan would be killed immediately, and the city would burn down to ashes. Although North Korea's missiles can reach the west coast of the United States, there hasn't been reason to believe they could go as far as New York. And many experts question the North's claim that it has built a hydrogen bomb, while some say it is possible. Turkish warplanes hitting Kurdish rebel targets in northern Iraq today after a terror attack on the streets of Ankara. A suicide car bomb killed 37 people and wounded about 125 others in the heart of the Turkish capital. It is the third one in the city in 5 months and comes as Turkey faces renewed fighting with Kurdish rebels and threats from the Islamic State and a Syrian refugee crisis. Meanwhile, in Africa, al-Qaeda is claiming responsibility for attacks on a beach resort town in the Ivory Coast. At least 22 people died, including 14 civilians and 2 security forces. 6 attackers carried out assaults on 3 hotels, opening fire on beachgoers. It is the third terrorist attack on an African resort center in the past 3 months. Pat?
You know, ladies and gentlemen, there's a story I was reading yesterday about an interchange between John Kerry and the president, and he was saying to the president, can we go in now and do something? And the president says no. He said, let's do something against ISIS in Syria, and the president said no. Obama doesn't want to do anything. And as a result, the crazies are running wild all over the globe. And people are afraid now. The fact that here the Ivory Coast gets hit with people yelling, Allah Akbar and all that business. They're blowing up people in Turkey, and who knows what else they're doing. And we're going to talk to Chuck Holton a little bit about Sinjar and what the ISIS did there and what they've done in Ramadi and these other cities. It's really terrible, and our president won't do anything. And so the North Koreans are now saying, we're going to nuke New York City. And you say, well, that's an idle threat. No, it's not. They're developing as fast as they can intercontinental ballistic missiles. The same thing with Iran. They're developing sophisticated missiles. And although they might not be able to carry a nuclear warhead now, surely they'll move toward not only a single missile, but a MIRV missile. And the nuclear blackmail potential from that in terms of the United States is enormous. Folks, you cannot act in a vacuum. You know, there's that statement, nature abhors a vacuum. We've got a vacuum of leadership. I mean, it's really, really serious, and it's imperiling every one of us. So don't think, well, I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Republican, or I'm an independent. It makes no difference. We're all under the gun unless we get something done in our nation united against terror. John.
Pat, voters in Germany delivered a strong rebuke of Chancellor Angela Merkel over her open-door policies on immigration. They threw their support behind a conservative party called the AfD that holds a strong line on immigrants. CBN's Dale Hurt spoke with a member of the AfD party in an exclusive interview.
I think we have to learn in Germany to call something by its name. Sadly, for a long time, we've built a system of political correctness. We are forbidding a lot of thinking and speaking.
The AfD party was formed just 3 years ago and has surged in popularity following Merkel's decision to allow millions of immigrants into Germany. You can see more of our interview on Dale's blog at cbnnews.com. Well, the German pilot who flew a jetliner into a mountain in the Alps last year was on antidepressants, including one that could have had a deadly side effect. Andreas Lubitz was the co-pilot of the plane. He locked the captain out of the cockpit and slammed Flight 9525 into the mountainside nearly a year ago. All 150 people on board were killed. Lubitz had mental health and physical problems and consulted dozens of doctors. One of them prescribed antidepressants, including one whose side effects can include suicidal tendencies. He didn't report any of that to the airliner. Neither did the doctors because of Germany's strict medical confidentiality laws. Now French investigators looking into the crash say those laws must change. Scientists are fighting against the Zika virus with a controversial new method. They want to release genetically modified male mosquitoes carrying a deadly gene. It would make their offspring die before they're old enough to bite. The FDA says the modified mosquitoes are not dangerous to humans or the environment, and scientists are already using these mosquitoes in Brazil. But critics worry about side effects.
When you open this Pandora box, it's no way to recall these mosquitoes.
CBN's Operation Blessing is fighting Zika in Central and South America by distributing bed nets and insect repellent, along with using tiny fish to eat mosquito larvae in water around homes and villages. You can find out more about how OB is fighting Zika and how you can help on their website at ob.org. Pat?
Folks, you may remember a few years ago, there was a little lady whose name was Rachel Carlson. And she wrote a touching book called, quote, Silent Spring. You remember that book? Mm-hmm. Where there weren't any birds singing, and the birds were all dead. They'd all fallen out of the sky. And so we had a silent spring. And why did we have that spring? It was because of the deleterious effects of a substance called DDT. You remember?
Sure.
And they killed all those robins and all those bluebirds and all those wonderful furry flying creatures around because of the willfulness of mankind. Well, that book got into the hands of the United Nations and into the hands of the Nixon administration. And there was a furor throughout the world to ban DDT because we didn't want a silent spring and we didn't want to kill all those nice little birds. Well, in the process, we have unleashed a plague on the world. The amount of airborne or mosquito-borne disease like malaria is appalling. And now this Zika is wreaking havoc on unborn children. And it goes on and on and on, and we're doing everything we can. We've got mosquito nets, and we've got chemically treated things going on. But we refuse to use the most effective insecticide we had, which is DDT. Now, maybe they can come up with something else, but first, this is what politicians can do when they get their hands on something. They screw it up. And so a lot of people are dying. I'm talking about, 400 or 500 million people in the world have malaria, and it's killing millions of people every year. So we're going to kill a bunch of people so we can keep those birds from falling from the sky. Not smart. John?
Pat, if you want to keep your memory healthy in your later years, eat blueberries in your middle age. A new study from the University of Cincinnati says that a key ingredient in blueberries could help strengthen the brain against dementia or Alzheimer's in older age. Blueberries are already known to possibly lower the risk for other diseases, including heart disease and cancer. And Pat, it's like they're taking a page right out of your diet plan.
Well, as a matter of fact, I had a helping of blueberries this morning, along with mixed berries. I have red raspberries and strawberries and blueberries. I had a big bag of blueberries that I finished last week or so, and they're good for you. Mm-hmm. I thought they were just very high in antioxidants. I didn't know about all this other, but we don't want dementia. Do you eat your blueberries, sweetie?
Not enough, but I'm onto it now.
I'll share you some.
Thank you.
I tell you, this thing called the Price Club, you know, mm-hmm. They have these big bags of mixed frozen berries. They're really good.
Oh, is that what you eat, the frozen ones? You just thaw them in the morning?
Oh, yeah. When they freeze them quickly, they maintain the nutrients as far as I can tell. But yeah, I pig out on those berries. They're good for nuts and berries. I tell you, folks, it's the latest new fad, nuts and berries. Go back to the paleo diet. What the caveman would have eaten if he had a chance to get at blueberries, he would have eaten them.